My name is Eric Elgin. I'm an aquatic ecologist and water resources educator with MSU Extension and also help coordinate the Cooperative Lakes Monitoring Program. I'm here with a few of our teammates, and I'll have them, I'll point them out. Joe, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Joe Lattimore here from MSU. I am the coordinator of the MyCore program and also a faculty member in our Department of Fisheries and Wildlife.
And Tamara?
Good morning, everyone. I am with EGLE, which is the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. I'm a biologist there, and I am the representative for EGLE for MyCore.
Perfect. And Mike?
Good morning. My name's Mike Gallagher, and I'm with the Michigan Lakes and Streams Association. I'm on the board and the treasurer of that organization, and I've been a CLMP volunteer for, I don't know, around 10 years or so. So it's nice to see 44 people in the meeting today.
That's right. And Jean, is Jean on? I don't see Jean, but I may miss. Okay, no one's popping up. So, but if she pops on, Jean Roth, you've gotten as volunteers lots of information and all of your sampling gear from her. She helps coordinate and make sure all those logistics happen. Okay, so let's get started with this brief presentation. And feel free, so I should point out there is a chat function. So throughout the presentation here, you can put your questions or comments within that chat. You just click on it and put in your question. Also, feel free to unmute yourself. With 40 people, maybe that's a lot, so we'll see how it goes. But if you have a question, feel free to unmute and say, I have a question. So we learned about our team here, but just in case you want, some of us aren't here. So I just wanted to point out, Paul Steen, he used to play a much larger role in the CLMP, but now he's doing a lot more with the MyCore Streams program, but he's still helping out with CLMP. He'll be doing a lot of the data management. And Mlsa DeSimone, also with Mlsa with Mike, she helps with a variety of things with MyCore, including marketing. And of course, Jean there on the bottom right. There was some confusion in multiple different places this springtime where we just wanted to clarify. We do have this great contract with the state of Michigan for the next 5 years for CLMP programming or MyCore programming. So that's great news. You know, these last couple of years we were in kind of this strange place, but we have some nice solid ground to move forward on. And we're going to be doing a lot of new things. As you know, we did this online registration. We're going to be doing website updates and database updates, which I'll talk about soon, and a whole lot of other things. And one of the things that changed also is that the Great Lakes Commission no longer is part of the team. And now a lot of those responsibilities are on MSU and MSU Extension. And we have our other partners with the Huron River Watershed Council, Mlsa, and EGLE. But I guess I would note, you know, as many of the veteran volunteers on here know, we did go through, you know, a time when we didn't have secure funding. And right now we do for the next 5 years secure funding, but it's always good to talk to others about the benefits of CLMP. So if you ever get a chance to talk to any of your local leaders or even a state leader about what you're doing on your lake and how much you appreciate it, you know, even though we have secure funding, it's always nice to talk about all the wonderful things this program does. And I think all of that can really help maybe secure the next 5 years after this. So our database, we're looking far into the future. We're going to be doing some great work on our database online, where we'll be putting new features in that'll be really nice and handy and user friendly. But for now, we do still have our old database, but that old database is under construction. So you'll see if you try to enter your data within the data exchange here and you click enter data, this will come up. And this red text is important. Entry of new data is currently unavailable while we make updates to the MyCore data exchange. So we are still transferring some of the old database into today. And part of that is that we're going to, for the veteran volunteers, you had an old username and password that you used. Do not use that. You are unable to use that. You cannot enter data right now. Soon though, in the upcoming weeks, we are updating things, but you will not, even when it's updated and it's ready to go, you do not need to keep your old username and password. That will not work. The new username and password is what you did to enroll in the program. So, you know, our new online system, you created a new username and password. That's going to be the same one for this. So you'll only have one username and password for the CLMP program, which is nice and handy. So, you know, thank you for, you know, it's great to get the data in as soon as possible, but thank you for your patience as we kind of make these changes and updates. Also new this year, and this is going to be ongoing, is that usually in the past we closed all enrollment, so all parameters would close in the month of May. But now what we've done is we have left open enrollment for the Exotic Aquatic Plant Watch and Score the Shore. So this is great. You know, so if any of you change your mind through the course of the year, you can still sign up for this in the beginning of August and still accomplish everything you need to do for these parameters. Also, you know, if as you go through the summer and you're talking to other individuals on lakes near you or not near you, you know, this is a great tool to get people introduced to the CLMP. So if you're talking and people are interested in invasive species or natural shorelines or shoreline erosion, which has been a big issue over the last few years, you can point them towards us and they can still sign up for these parameters. So just for a nice little review, many of you have seen this if you're in total phosphorus, spring or summer, and then also chlorophyll. These are our summer sampling schedules, is what we call them. And I just want to note a few things just to point out. Everyone did really well this year getting your samples to us and to the Eagle offices. Joe did a ton of work getting the acid and all the preservation that needed to happen in all those hundreds of bottles that come in. And I just wanted to point out, so things that changed a little bit in the summer sampling for phosphorus and chlorophyll is that the last time you sample is a little different. It's different by latitude. So if you're in southern Michigan compared to northern Michigan, it's a little different sampling. And so make sure to look at your sampling dates, which you'll see in this column, or in chlorophyll you'll see here. So you'll see that we tell you what range of dates to sample in throughout the course of the summer. And then as you can see for sample number 5, for example, if you're in Allegan County, you're doing September 23rd through the 27th, but make sure you look at your county, because Ottawa County, for example, your 5th sample is September 16th through the 20th. That's when you want to do that. And your turn-in dates change as well by latitude. So just to take note of that, and make sure you know, you get to your turn-in location where you need to. What's great is we have if you have any issues or you have any confusion, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you arrange something else. Or we have contacts for the local offices to confirm. Let's say you're going to be 5 minutes late, maybe give them a call to make sure they're still going to be there out of courtesy, and also they'll help you out if you're having problems finding the location.
Hi, this is Doug Pollett. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm in Genesee County and I still have not received any materials to do phosphorus sampling, and I look at your schedule and I was supposed to have started this apparently in July.
So this would be for chlorophyll on the right hand side. So your summer phosphorus, I talked to Jean a couple weeks ago and she said she will be starting to send those out momentarily. I'll say momentarily, that's kind of vague on purpose. Soon you will get those bottles.
Okay,
right,
great.
so as you can see there, Doug, the summer phosphorus sampling, you don't do that till September. So there's
Gotcha.
plenty of time.
Super, thank you very much.
And I think it's sometime in the beginning of August is when she sends those out.
Okay.
Here.
Oh, there's me.
Oh, and Jean is on. All right.
Yeah, here I am, and I'll probably send out some of the northern ones. Will be going out next week, and then I work my way south after that.
Perfect. And Jean, we introduced you as a pivotal cog of the CLMP machine.
That sounds impressive.
So the paper copies would have been sent to you if you are in Phosphorus or Chlorophyll. That would have been sent with you early on, but in case you misplaced them, you can't find them, you can go onto our website. So you go to mycore.net, you go to CLMP documents right here, and then when you look through the program documents, you can see that there is your summer phosphorus sampling schedule or your chlorophyll. And you can find a whole lot of other great documents. I like to show this because our website does have a tremendous amount of information on there. So I hope this is helpful here. So I was being kind of dramatic when I wrote the title to this, is dandruff can change your phosphorus readings. But what I'm saying here is keeping your sample, your bottles clean prior to collecting the sample, and then during and after collecting the sample is really important. The dandruff thing is kind of dramatic, but if you're in a very oligotrophic lake, like where the phosphorus readings are near non-detect, which can be possible, especially for summer readings, any little bits of dust or dandruff that starts to fall into your sample could skew what you actually have. So very important. And then of course, here's the dramatic, the picture here of a Parmesan container. And although it appears clean for us, right, we wash it out and stuff like that, there can still be some traces of many different kinds of material on that plastic that can go into the water sample and skew the sample. So that's why we use those Eagle cleaned bottles that are specifically cleaned, either probably acid washed or autoclaved to get out all the particles and other materials that could skew our results.
This Parmesan container is an actual phosphorus sample that a CLMP volunteer sent in a few years ago. And of course we had to reject it. We feel bad when we have to do that, but every year there's 1 or 2 samples that come in. This year I got some in drinking water bottles that people had used, probably drank the water and then filled it full of lake water, and we can't accept that either.
And actually, Joe, that reminds me, I'm going to go back to the summer schedule. We have these sampling dates that you can sample in between, where we accept your sample perfectly. Those sampling dates are really important. CLMP is a long-term monitoring program. And so to keep consistency within the data through the year so that we can compare it and actually have meaning behind it, we need to be consistent with our dates, because as time progresses through the course of a month, your lake is changing and there can be different things happening that mean something different for those chlorophyll numbers or phosphorus numbers. And so trying to get in there within that range of dates is really important. In your chlorophyll protocol, if you do chlorophyll, you are asked to put aluminum foil, tin foil around your samples when you're done filtering them in those tubes. So why? You do this because chlorophyll starts to degrade in sunlight. When light reaches it, it can break it apart, and you will get a not as accurate sample. And so that's why we even collect it and we put it in those dark bottles instead of a clear bottle, because once you collect it and light starts to go in there, you can start to skew your sample. So it's really important to wrap your samples in foil when you are sending it, when you're right before you freeze it and send it to us. We've had to reject, through time, samples because they will not be reliable. And some dissolved oxygen reminders. Remember, conduct that sampling every other week through mid-May to September. If you're calibrating, turn on those meters 15 minutes before you calibrate. That's really important. And now where the dissolved oxygen probe is, there is a membrane. That membrane needs to keep some humidity around it, some moisture around it. And so this is really important because this has happened to me through time, right through the sampling season, that there's a sponge in the bottom of the little slit that goes over the dissolved oxygen probe. Make sure that remains wet, not standing water, but make sure it's wet, and that humidity keeps that membrane in good condition. And again, through the season, so every time you use it, you should just make sure that that's moist enough, and re-moisten if necessary. When you're looking at your readings, we want milligrams per liter and not percent saturation. Percent saturation is a really neat number, and you can take note and learn a little bit about that. For example, you could be in the upper parts of your lake and you could have over 100% saturation with oxygen, which is pretty neat. And that's because the algae are photosynthesizing like crazy, and there's actually your oversaturation of what the water can handle at that temperature. So that's neat, and so you can look at it, but make sure you are putting the numbers that are in milligrams per liter, not saturation. And make sure you're following those measuring depths according to the data sheet. That's really important because we're specifically trying to find where that thermocline is and when those changes happen within the metalimnion, the middle parts of the lake, of a stratified lake. And so it's really important to follow those numbers. And the bottom of the lake. So you don't want to touch the bottom. First of all, you could hurt the meter, hurt that membrane that I talked about. But then also, if you get it into that kind of, on the bottom of lakes, you can actually have a fluffy layer of sediment and water. And if you get the probe down in there, it will likely go all the way down to 0 or close to 0 oxygen. And you could say, wow, I don't have oxygen at the bottom of my lake. But actually, you're now into this fluffy sediment, and that's not really a true reading there. So that can give you indication. If you're really high oxygen and then you suddenly near the bottom plummet, that could be something, but you might be in this superficial layer of sediment and water.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On one of my lakes, it gets close to 0, well, under 2 for the dissolved oxygen. Once it gets to that, I mean, it goes there about 35 feet, but the depth is 65 feet.
Okay.
So I pretty much just stop the rest of the recording at that point. Is that correct?
No, you could keep going. So once you're below 2, you're in stress. So it kind of means I would be curious in that lake, if you go down further, will you get to 0 or close to, like really close to 0? Because that means something a little different. When you're below 2, when you're below 2 milligrams per liter, you're stressing fish out at that point. Many fish that require higher oxygen, you're stressing them out, and that's called hypoxia. What I'd be curious about in that lake, Marilyn, is if you keep going down, and if it gets to 0 or like 0.5, which is kind of in the error bars of what these meters can measure, that would be anoxia. So you're at 0 oxygen. At that point, different chemistry things can occur, and that would be interesting to know. For example, does phosphorus get re-released from the sediments? So that doesn't happen at 2, it would happen at 0.
Okay. At some point I'd been told that if it got below 2, it wasn't accurate on these meters, but we'll keep going.
Yeah, and I'll look into the accuracy. So it should be accurate. More than 2 milligrams per liter. But that's a good point. I'll look into the accuracy of those so that we have that range.
Thanks.
So folks who are in the Exotic Aquatic Plant Watch or in our aquatic plant mapping, or just anyone who is interested when they're out on their lakes, I want to talk a little bit about Eurasian milfoil lookalikes. We often give a quick diagnosis for if you have Eurasian milfoil, which is you have a whorled leaf arrangement and you have more than 12 leaflets per side, and leaflets are referring, leaflets are referring to these little appendages coming out of those leaves, and you'd say more than 12, you have Eurasian milfoil. But that's not if we dive in a little bit more, there's a little bit more to look at. And I just wanted to describe some of those just to keep in the back of your mind. So there are 8 milfoils in Michigan. So in the genus of milfoil, there are 8. 2 are invasive, Eurasian milfoil and parrot feather. Parrot feather is really unique and it's not found in many locations. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. If you see a milfoil-like plant that's sticking above the water, contact us or Eagle, Eagle's invasive species. And I think I might have I'll note where to report if you see a plant like that. But otherwise, so then there's a handful of other native milfoils, but 3 in particular are fairly common and can be hard to distinguish from Eurasian water milfoil. The first one is world milfoil, or Myriophyllum verticillatum. So how can you tell the difference between world milfoil and Eurasian milfoil? Because by the way, world milfoil can have, not always, up to 14 leaflets. So how can you tell? World milfoil will have a dark stem. It has really short internodes. And what I mean by that is this area right here, you can see my cursor, right? Moving, perfect, yeah. This area right here is called an internode. Here's the node where the leaves are coming out, and here's the area in between, that's an internode. In world milfoil, they're really short compared to Eurasian. It actually looks kind of like it can look like a pipe cleaner. If you guys know what I mean by that. And if you look closely, there's no petiole. And what that is the leaf is pretty much coming right out of the stem. Variable leaf milfoil is another common milfoil that's out there. You can distinguish that from Eurasian by the dark stem. It'll be a brownish green stem, and the leaves aren't entirely whorled around the stem. Instead, they would be scattered, or what I like to call tilt-a-whirl, like if it, that fair, fair ride, there we go, the fair ride that hopefully we'll be enjoying this summer. It's kind of this tilted off to the side and looks a little wonky. And then also short internodes. So I should mention Eurasian milfoil is going to have a pinkish light stem. Now there is hybrid milfoil, which is really annoying, but for Eurasian milfoil, it has that pinkish, whitish, tan stem. Northern milfoil, what's nice, this is a really common one as well, but you're going to have under 12 leaflets, and it's going to have a very white stem. So I know I don't have pictures of it, but this is more of just kind of to keep in the back of your mind that even if you have over 12 leaflets, but you're like at 14, you might have one of these other native plants. And so feel free to contact Joe, and I are the ones who do a lot of the plant stuff. So if you see something out there, feel free to, if you want a second opinion, feel free to send us a picture. And by send us multiple pictures that show us different parts of the plant.
Eric, I'm going to jump in real quick to comment. While you've been talking, I've been able to address a couple of the questions that you were going to follow up on, so we can take care of them right now.
Perfect.
I've been answering some questions in the chat, and one of them was the link that you had mentioned about reporting if you find something like parrot feather or other watch list species. Of course, we want to know about it, but it should also be shared with Eagle, and I put the link to how to do that there. And then the question about the accuracy of the dissolved oxygen meters that we use. They are, I looked it up, and they are accurate to 0.2 milligrams per liter. So if you're at 2 milligrams per liter, I'd say keep measuring because it's pretty accurate down there, even at those low levels.
Perfect. And that 0.2 is also kind of nice because, as anyone knows, when they're sending that meter, that probe down, it kind of fluctuates within like that 0.1, and it's always kind of hard, but now you know that that's within the error bars, so that should help with that as well. Okay, just another plant that I wanted to, or that we wanted to showcase is this emerging threat, European frogbit. It's an emerging threat because we're seeing it more and more. It seems like every year in inland lakes or inland waters around the state. It's been here for a long time, but it's kind of stayed in the coastal regions of Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, Saginaw Bay. But now, as you can see with these red dots, we've started to see them come in. And I'll just mention, so Pentwater Lake. So if you're up in that area, be aware. So Pentwater Lake has it. The Lower Grand River has it in Grand Haven Spring Lake area. Reeds and Fisk Lakes in Grand Rapids proper has it. A state game area called Dansville has it over in the Lansing area. And then parts of in the Waterloo Rec area, there's a handful of lakes that have it there as well. So, and then in these coastal areas, first of all, they're on the coast, or they've been found in water retention ponds or wetlands in urban environments. So just keep an eye out. I'm going to show you here real quick how to ID these. What's nice is that they're fairly easy to identify, but can be confused with other species. So this plant is a free floating plant. So all the roots kind of dangle below. They look like little lily pads. You can see with this person's hand here, kind of the size we're looking at. This is a really big one. Usually they're slightly smaller. They have that heart-shaped base. They have a white flower with a yellow inside. And again, that free floating plant. As you can see, there's nothing in Michigan that's native that is free floating. All of our water lilies are rooted onto the bottom. So if you tried to pull up a white water lily, which can be confusing with this plant, you would actually be yanking on it because it's rooted into the sediment pretty tightly. And this is like if you're standing on a boat, this gives a nice little view. So since it's free floating, it gets shoved off to the side. You're not going to find it in the middle of the lake. It gets kind of moved around, just like duckweed moves around. And so here's a cattail wetland here, and here's the European frogbit. So it's hard to see any detail, but more how small it is compared to the white water lily that's in the front here. So just keep an eye out for that. We don't want, this is a threat that the whole state of Michigan is really interested in. And this is where Joe sent that, how to report. This plant should be reported to the state of Michigan. And again, if you need some help confirming the species identification, we'd be happy to help with that as well. So a little bit more, there are a lot of resources out there for our aquatic invasive species, including the mobile boat wash. Joe has been with that. I hope she's probably had a crew on some of your lakes. I see some heads nodding, and probably this year and years past. That's a great way to get the word out on cleaning your gear. I just saw, sometimes we stage pictures for outreach purposes where there's lots of plants dangling like in a funny way just to make a point. But I saw a legit, like 2 weeks ago, a boat driving down the road that looked like it was a joke. I was shocked. I think there was like 30 pounds of plants dangling from this boat. And I was blown away. So the word is out there, the clean, drain, dry message that Clean Boats, Clean Waters, and all of us talk about is out there. So I think it's doing we know it's doing a good job, but the word can always needs to be repeated. So we slow and stop the spread of these invasive species. And there's a tremendous amount of educational materials and resources. And even with our new Clean Boats, Clean Waters program, there's some grants that are available. There's a grant cycle, so I don't think you can get them all the time, but you can check out all of this at the micbcw.org. So that's the Michigan Clean Boats, Clean Waters.org website. And there's other aspects of aquatic invasive species. One of them is the aquarium and garden trade. We've identified that where do some of these new invasive species come from? For example, that parrot feather, that other milfoil, that is a more water garden plant. That plant originated in that trade, in the horticulture trade. And so we need to be thinking about that as well. And so there's a lot of different material out there. So if you love aquariums or you have a nice water garden in your back, there's some great educational materials with a program called Ripple. And in that, you can find that there's lots of different things, from looking at the regulations, learning how to identify plants and animals, and looking at other invasive species programs like the Habitatitude. I've never, it's a cool name, and it's a name I cannot say. So I don't know how effective that is. Hopefully it's effective. Okay, kind of rounding out everything. There's always, this is just a quick reminders, things that we see that we'd like to let you know of. But if there are still, you have questions about protocols, you need a refresher, go to our mycore.net, go to lakes. If you go to 2021 lake training, this is what it'll look like on your screen. And then scroll down. I just wanted to show you, scroll down and you'll see Seki disk, transparency, and phosphorus. That'll be the first one. A PowerPoint is there, just a static PowerPoint, but then also a recording that'll take you to YouTube where you can watch each different parameter on how to do it. So take a peek at that if you need a refresher in any of our protocols. Of course, so that's the end of our kind of more formal presentation for today. So we'll take questions. I just want to say that, thank you for all of you. Each one of you doing stuff on your lakes or multiple lakes around your region makes a big difference for Michigan's inland lakes. It's amazing how many people, first of all, individually on the lake use this data, this long-term data, but then Joe, myself, and Tamara can all say we deal with a lot of colleagues who use the CLMP data to get a sense of what's going on in lakes around the state. So thank you very much. We're very grateful for your efforts. So I don't know if I see there's lots of chats. Joe and Tamara may have been keeping up on them. Feel free to put anything more into the chats or just unmute yourself if you're comfortable and ask.
Yes, my name is John Waits. I'm a vice president of on the board of PBWOA, Portage-Based Whitewood Owners Association. We monitor a chain of lakes and have been doing it for a number of years. And our association pays for the monitoring, and then we have volunteers that monitor the different 5 lakes. The question that I have, it would be nice if during registration period, we could register all 5 lakes and pay for it in one lump instead of this year. I had to use my credit card to pay for each individual lake. It would be nice to be able to put them all in and do one credit card transaction to cover all of our lakes. The other point that I wanted to make is that right now, all of the information has to be sent to me as the sponsor of all this, and cannot send the individual collection data information to each person that's doing the testing. It would be nice to be able to say, here, phosphorus, spring and summer phosphorus testing, please, the material goes to this person, this address. Right now, it all comes here and then I have to distribute it myself. So there's just 2 comments. It would be handy to be able to register everybody as a group and do the other part of it. So we're very supportive of what's going on. It's been very nice. Oh, third, one of our lakes is in Washtenaw County. The other lake is half in Washtenaw, half in Lenawee County, and the rest of our lakes are in Lenawee. When we turn in phosphorus for the spring, we'd like to be able to turn them all in at once, rather than have to make 2 trips up to Lansing for them. Would that be possible?
Great questions, John, and I'll answer all of them.
Oh, good.
Yeah, or respond to your comments too. There are a few other chains of lakes like yours that have the same situation where they had to make separate transactions to pay for each of the lakes. I'm not sure if there's a way to make it that we can make one payment, but I can check into that with MSUs. payment system to see if that's something where we can give that as an option for people. It's unusual. Most volunteers are just doing one, as I'm sure you realize, but there's certainly, you're not alone in a chain of lakes or a association that monitors several lakes. So, you know, for next year, we have some time now, so we can look at that and see if that's something we can do. As far as getting things sent to the right people, the people that will be doing the monitoring, there's a way to do that within the system, and then there's a backhanded way to do it. So there's a couple options within the system. You know, the way that we have it set up is that if you sign up as the lead volunteer for the lake, then you're the one that receives everything. So that's what you are, John, right now. You're the lead volunteer.
Yes.
If you wanted everything sent to different people, the way to do it using the system would be to have the volunteer that's on each of those lakes sign up as the lead volunteer, and then they just forward the invoice to you for payment. And so you wouldn't have to be the lead volunteer, they would, and then they would get everything mailed to them. Now that's how to do it on that side. If you want to do it kind of the behind the scenes way, you talk to Jean Roth, and Jean is the one who does all the mailing of all the supplies. And if you want things sent somewhere other than what our computer is telling her to send them, then contacting Jean directly. She distributes all of those materials, and she can make a note on the file for that lake. Jean, let me know if I'm talking out of bounds and that you are willing to do that.
That's correct. And that's what I do. If he contacts me and with each lake tells me where he wants it sent, I can make sure the summer phosphorus gets sent to the person that takes the sample and not him.
Right.
Yeah,
But that's what I have to go by. I have to go by the information on the paper.
Yeah, Gene, you've been very helpful in past years with billing and different things of this nature that you and I have had conversations on. So thank you.
And then your final comment, John, about the turn-in dates for your different counties, that is, we're aware of that the fact that Washtenaw and Livingston are on different schedules as far, their weeks different. And so we can work with that as well. And in the past we have you can hold on to those earlier samples and turn them all in one place with the later sample. And that's totally fine. It's good if you give us a heads up to expect that. So when, you know, we're waiting for the Livingston County sample and it doesn't show up, but then it comes in the next week with the Washtenaw sample, that's okay. So, you know, feel free to, and if you want some clarification on that, let me know, but it's okay to hold on to a sample an extra week and then turn them all together, as long as they're being collected at the right time.
Right.
The turn in is less critical than the collection date.
Right. I like to turn them all in myself so that I don't have 5-6 people running to East Lansing to deliver samples, and the idea of doing our samplers, they're very good. They devote a lot of time to this, so we try and make it easy as possible for them to do their job of the sampling too. So it's not a terrible thing for everything to come to me and then for me to distribute it to them. So, but thank you, Joe.
Sure. Yep. We can work with you to make it as easy as possible.
Yep.
Great. So there's some comments coming in on the chat, some questions, and there was one that was sent just to me. So Eric and others haven't seen it. So I'll mention that one right away. What have been the Seki trends year to date? Portage is getting progressively more turbid or cloudy. We don't see the Seki data until folks can turn it in. And so, and since the database isn't open right now, we don't know what the Seki measurements on other lakes look like year to date, but it's pretty typical for lakes to become, you know, less clear over the course of the season. And I know many of our lakes actually experienced an extended clearwater phase this spring where the lakes were really clear early on. And now they're kind of catching up with productivity from algae and other suspended materials. And also a lot of the state has gotten a lot of rain all at once. So that may result in runoff and other things going into the lake that makes it a little more cloudy too. So what you may be seeing may be perfectly normal, but I can't address what other lakes are seeing from a data standpoint because we haven't seen that yet.
And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to think of, I'm talking to Paul a couple of years ago, Paul Steen, and I think he was looking at the long-term trends about some of our CLMP lakes. And I think that is tending slowly towards more clear.
Mhm.
We're being very general, of course. Some lakes aren't, but in a general sense, CLMP lakes are becoming a little bit more clear through the decades,
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
which is pretty
And
neat to see.
yeah, it is, and good, right? In many cases, unless it's because of zebra mussels, right? Coming in and making your lake really clear. All right, I'll just keep reading through these. So the next one from Kelly, how do I find the lake sampling site field ID number for my transparency data? Kelly, I think you're monitoring some new lakes in our program. So we're just in the process of establishing the field ID numbers for those. We have them for some of them, but they may have not been communicated to you yet. So we can look that up for you. If we haven't got it to you yet, don't worry. If you have to leave that blank on a data form, that's fine as well. But also, if you shoot us an email, we can look up the number for you or let you know how long it'll be until we get it for you. But we probably have it. It's just something that we have just been generating this spring for the new lakes. Pat asked, is the exotic aquatic plant watch data only collected one time or are multiple samples needed? That's a really good question. So across the lake, it's hard to go out and sample an entire lake in one day if you're on a large lake. Smaller lakes can do it on a single date, but we offer a lot of flexibility in the exotic aquatic plant watch. So, some of our lakes, the volunteers there go out throughout the course of the summer and will, maybe, survey the whole lake multiple times or maybe focus on different parts of the lake as long as they cover the whole lake during the course of the year. Some of our lakes will only look at some of those high risk areas like boat landings and places where introductions of invasives are possible. And so you can kind of do it however you want. We're flexible on that. An ideal situation would be you do get around to surveying the entire lake. And if you want to do it a couple times during the course of the year, if you have the time, you can certainly record all that data and send it to us. We'll take whatever you can get is kind of the overall answer on that. So make sure you look at those boat landings and other places where introductions are likely to occur, because that's where you're most likely to find things. Chelsea asked, have the summer phosphorus bottles already been sent out? The answer is not yet. Jean's working on that, and she'll start sending out the bottles for the most northern lakes here in the next week or so, because they have to sample sooner. And then every week she'll send out another batch. So sampling for you, Chelsea, in your part of the state won't be until September. So you've got plenty of time. We'll get those out to you. All right, John asked, have other lakes encountered the clear water phase this spring that we have seen in East Twin Lake? Eric, I'm going to let you address that one.
Yeah, so what John's referring to, John had a really neat thing that happened in his lake, and this is a phenomenon that happens in a lot of mesotrophic lakes. It doesn't have to be mesotrophic, but that's what we see it commonly in, is a spring clear water phase where you have when ice comes off, you have the typical turbid lake. And then all of a sudden, and I mean all of a sudden, it could be a day or two, the lake you will see the water clear to like the bottom of the lake. It could be 20 feet a change in Seki disk or a 10-foot change in Seki disk within a day or two. And that's caused by these little organisms called Daphnia or water fleas. They're filter feeders and they are reproducing like crazy. The conditions are great for them and they eat down the algae really fast because they are filtering the majority of the water column during that time period because there are so many of them. Anyway, so that's, and then through time, they kind of eat themselves out of house and home. And so they collapse. Also, fish love them. And so they get eaten. And then the water clarity starts to decline again. And that's what's called the clear water phase. So that's kind of a simple kind of rundown of that. But so if you're out on your lake in the early springtime, early summer, and you see that dramatic change from turbid to clear in a day or so, you're likely seeing a spring clear water phase. So John asks, have any other lakes kind of experienced this? I've talked to a small handful of lakes that mentioned this to me. And so I think some people have seen that. I'd be curious if anyone else on the call want to say anything if they've seen something like that.
Yeah, this is Doug Pohl out on Silver Lake. We experienced that this spring. It was incredible.
It's really, oh yeah, go ahead.
The Seki disk readings at its clearest point were almost 25 feet. It was incredible.
Yeah, and if you take what you can do, if your dock is out at this time, this is without a net or anything. You could just lay on your stomach, look down at the water when it's clear, and you'll see a lot of movement of very tiny little things. But you should be able to see it just with your naked eye. And those are those water fleas. And water fleas, unfortunately, called, they're not bad for us. They're wonderful parts of the ecosystem. I call them sea cows. That's maybe a nicer way.
John wants to know, following up on that, is the fishing good during this clear water phase?
I don't know, the water's still cold. They might be, the little fish are eating like crazy. The planktivores, the fish that eat the zooplankton, those little critters, which might increase the activity of the predators. That's a great question. Tamara, do you have a sense of that?
I don't know. I was hoping maybe some of the fishermen or women on would tell us, because I don't know.
If nothing else, it would be fun because you'd be able to see, the fish where you might not always, you'd be able to see, or frustrating. I know I've had those experiences where the fish are right there and they're just totally not interested in my tackle at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty neat. So I'd encourage anyone who sees that with this is why Seki data is so wonderful. It can really start telling you something. And if you see that clear water really rapid, take a look. You could be experiencing the clear water phase.
Yeah, this is Rick Flegel with Portage Lake. And I'm not an expert fisherman, but the people I consult with say the clear water is interesting for fishing, but the fish are much more wary in clear water. So you have to be more careful about trying to catch them and surprise them. So, and we had very clear water this spring with Portage Lake in St. Joseph County.
Is there a correlation between drought and the clear water phase?
Yeah, well, so we would say there's a correlation between drought and clear water. Maybe not. So the clear water phase is a specific event caused by those water fleas, those sea cows. And so the clear water in the springtime, that we had that drought conditions, not a lot of rain. So we weren't getting a lot of runoff from the surface into our water bodies. Our creeks that maybe flow into our lakes were flowing a lot slower or not flowing at all, maybe intermittent. And so a lot of the nutrients and sediments weren't coming off of the landscape and draining into our water bodies. So that can cause lower algal growth and lower suspended sediments that can come into our lakes. So you can get clearer water conditions. So across the landscape of Michigan, we probably had a lot clearer water in many of our lakes because of the low precipitation. Now, nothing is there's lots of things, everything's interconnected. So now maybe with the drought, plus you had the Daphnia doing really well, you could get them working together. And so you have an especially clear year. So that definitely occurs when conditions are just right. Those Daphnia can really pull the algae out of the water and you get an especially clear lake. So there's some connection there.
The next question that came in from Leslie, and maybe Tamara, I'll ask you to say a word about this and then others might have input as well. Leslie's asking, for those of us who are monitoring dissolved oxygen, are many people using weights on their dissolved oxygen probes?
I don't know how many people are using them, but yes, people definitely use weights. And I've seen it a couple of different ways. With the Pro 20s, they might get one like a ball about that big, about 1 inch in diameter weight, a pretty big one, and then connect it with a zip tie to the cable. I've also have some in the garage that have like fishing swivels connected to there's usually out of the ball a little metal hook, place to hook that swivel on and connect it. So I've seen that as well. Those are the two. And then I've seen some interesting ones. Some One, I think I send it back to the same lake, but it has somebody somehow bent metal around the cord, so but it is wrapped around the cord, but I don't know how you could duplicate that, and I'd be worried about harming the cord. I do have some weights available, and if you can't find anything, then you can email me or call me, and I can probably mail something out to you.
Bought the ones that screw right into the bottom of the probe case, and they're like 2 4.5 ounce weights for $45, but they're beautiful. They're like jewelry for your probe, you know. Just like
I love that, Leslie. That's great. Jewelry for your probe.
oh yeah, they're lovely. But I wasn't sure that would even be enough weight, but I wasn't going for another $45.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be helping. But there have been days out there, you know, the wind is moving you and your probe is just going out sideways and you're getting the same readings over and over and over as you crank the line out. So we've had to abandon the effort because the data was not any good. So this week the weights helped and it was a calm day. But, you know, 100 feet down and you're still getting, you know, 8.2. Anyway, so any kind of weight will do. And it's okay to put it around the line itself, like with a fishing swivel?
Yes, yes.
gonna-
Just, I mean, you have to be aware that is a cable and, you know, you don't want to bend it too much because there's electrical things going on in there. But yeah, you can use a zip tie or a swivel of some type.
Because if it's on the cable, then it doesn't interfere with the probe cover for
Right,
you know,
right.
calibration and storage. Because these, I have to remove them in order for the cover to fit back on.
That's
So,
true.
okay, good.
That's true.
Thanks.
Yep.
I think we've gotten through all the questions in the chat, but we still have a few minutes here. So if folks have other questions, they want to unmute themselves and just speak up or type more into the chat, you're welcome to do that in the remaining
this
time
is
we have.
Martha from Bill's Lake up in Newaygo. I have a data question. So great that we're trying to aggregate the data better. The blessing and the curse of the web is that you can go and research. So in 2008, we noticed that the Rogue River watershed did a survey of our resources and noted that our lake in particular was outside the standard for mercury and that it was supposed to have been monitored through 2017. I searched and searched and searched. I couldn't find anything that showed that we were monitored for that to get us an all clear. I lived on the lake at the time the survey was done, and I don't recall anybody ever coming to us and saying that we had a mercury quote unquote issue. So I assume it's just that we were outside the standard and they were going to monitor it. How do I find out that that was monitored and we got the all clear, or if we still have a mercury out of standard that we need to?
Tamara.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. Hi, Martha. Well, I think if you could email me, I guess the information that you got about
I'll
it
send you
being
the document I found, and I'll do a snippet of where I found it.
Yeah, that'll give me a good start on my clue path.
My forensics. I'm out with my forensics.
Right. So I'll figure it out and I'll try to get you an answer. I just gotta. It's just gonna take me some time to go down the path.
Thanks. I'll do that right away. Thanks.
Yeah, learning about mercury in lakes in Michigan is really fascinating and unfortunate. I should say fascinating, but hard to see. There's a lot of lakes even in the Upper Peninsula that have much higher concentrations of mercury due to the old mining and smelting operations that happened there decades ago.
I have a question. When we got the Seki disc information and I got my equipment, my boat broke down and I wasn't able to get out in May. For matter of fact, we didn't get it fixed until June. And then the weather has been so horrendous. And I know the guidelines say that you should go out between 10 and 4 and it should be sunny. And it's been really difficult now. I am taking, measurements now because I didn't get a samples every other week, will my data be useless?
No, it's still useful. So whatever you can collect and submit, we will gladly accept. Depending on how many samples you manage to get throughout the course of the season, we may, when we send you your annual report on your lake, there may be some of the statistics we won't be able to calculate, like, you know, season-wide average and that kind of thing. But we'll still, the data is still useful. It still goes into our database and it's useful for you as well. So the only thing that it might affect would be whether we can calculate all the statistics that we sometimes do if we have a whole season's worth of data.
Should I go out and take measurements every week now because I couldn't do it? Or should I still stick to the every other week?
No, you don't have to try and cram in a bunch of extra measurements, you know, if you're, you know, because we give the option on the data sheet to collect either every week or every 2 weeks or somewhere in there. And if your goal was to monitor every 2 weeks, you can just keep with that. Don't, you know, there isn't a ton of value of saying, okay, now I'm going to go measure every single day, because that, again, that's not really telling you any changes across the year. It's fine to just, you know, that every 1 to 2 weeks is just fine.
All right, thank you.
And Pat, and cloudy conditions are okay. You know, you don't want to be under a thunderstorm or something like that. But cloudy conditions, you can go out and collect good Seki readings.
I've experienced a lot of high winds too.
Yeah, that's what's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of high winds, a lot of rain, a lot of cloudy. You know what it's been like for the last, you know, it's raining today, for a matter of fact. So I'll just do the best I can.
That's all we ask, right?
Yeah.
So thanks for asking that, Pat. John was asking if we can enter last season's Seki data into the database. No, for the same reason that you can't enter this year's data into the database. If you try, it won't let you in. So hold on to it. We will let everyone know when data entry is available again.
This is Doug Polat. I've got a question. You used to have seminars at various locations. It was normally conducted in the fall. Are you going to do that this year?
Are you talking about the MyCore annual conference or the Michigan Lakes and Streams Association regional conferences that happen in the fall?
I believe it's the regional conferences.
I'll let Mike respond to that if he can.
Oh, Mike, you're on mute.
Well, thanks for asking about that. The Michigan Lakes and Streams Association will have an annual conference next May at Crystal Mountain Resort. And it will be like we've done it the several years, except for during the COVID time. And there'll be, we're looking to also have it recorded and possibly hybrid, so that we can get as many people there and as many people learning about inland lakes, protecting them and taking care of them and making use, having a good time on them as we possibly can. So that'll be on May 5th, I believe is the date for that.
Mike, can you address the fall regional conferences? I think that was one of the things Doug was curious about.
Well, we do have a fall regional conference over for the Southwest region of Lower Michigan. And that is run by our executive director, Mlsa DeSimone. And her husband also helps run that meeting. That will happen again, and I'll put in the chat the date and the time of that meeting.
All right, folks. Well, we are right at 11 a.m. So that was our scheduled end time for this workshop. So thank you all for coming. If anyone has a final question they forgot to ask, we'll hang out for a minute or two after here. But I know I wanted to thank everyone for coming, and I'll hand it over to Eric to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, and I would say thank you all. Like I mentioned, we appreciate all the efforts you do to make this such a great program for every individual lake, but then also for Michigan's lakes. So thank you very much. Stay in contact. Let us know if you have any other follow-up questions, and have a great day. Happy sampling.
Will the chat information be available?
Mlsa Region 3, 25th.
What we can do is we can save the information from the chat, because I know we put a lot of links in there, and we will post it along with the video on the MyCore website in about a week.
Great, thanks.
Hey, Eric and Joe, the date for the MLSA Region 3 meeting is September 25th. And it is from 9:30 a.m. until 12. And right now, I don't have a location for that one, but Mlsa always has that in our newsletter and on our website also.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Eric, did you see the question in the chat from John about zooplankton?
Yeah, how soon after collecting zooplankton samples can I expect to find Daphnia? How soon after collecting zooplankton samples? So John, I'm not quite sure what you're asking there. You can, if you collect a profile of, because I know John has a Wisconsin plankton net. So if you collect a vertical profile of your lake for zooplankton, you will probably always find Daphnia. And what you'll see during the springtime is almost no Daphnia, almost no Daphnia, and then you'll see an explosion of Daphnia filling your plankton net. And you'll find that as long as that spring clear water phase is occurring, and then you'll see a dramatic decline. Like it could be very dramatic. They could be gone in a moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Nice to see you, John.
Eric, can you do one more question?
Sure.
Is there an update to the fish consumption recommendations? The amount of fish you can safely eat per month?
Not to my knowledge. I know they updated it a couple years ago. Tamara, are you in tune with what the state is saying there?
I don't think they, I don't know if they've updated the booklets, but I will right now get to that website and post it in the chat.
Okay, well, and Tamara, thank you. I can also go to that website. I didn't
Oh,
know,
okay.
I haven't looked myself recently, but some of my fellow lake members have asked about that. So I'll check, but.
We sample every year. I'm just not so sure how often they update it. But I would assume that whatever is on the website is the most recent data.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
most of it's the same across the state unless you're in a particular water body. Some water bodies can maybe change a little more frequently than the typical inland lakes across the state. So if you're in a more industrial lake, for example.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.